Welcome to the Casino Fanatic Podcast. I'm your host, Andy. So for those of you who don't know, I have a TikTok page called Casino Fanatic 78. And then on YouTube, I have another page under the same name. So when I started this channel, what I originally wanted to do was just record content relating to responsible gambling and do things like that to just promote that you can go to the casino and still have a good time. So when I originally set up this account, my goal was to have 50,000 lifetime views. Now, in that case, that was exceeded on a relatively quick basis. So I went from 50,000 views right away to now I'm at 48,000 followers and do about 1 million in views every day. But as we look at doing this podcast, what I thought it would be a great opportunity for people to kind of hear stories. I'd love it for people to be able to submit ideas and things that they would like to hear and see and do, and we would just have a conversation. So future episodes are going to have guests that we're going to do some interviews, but I thought I'd give you a little background on my gambling experience. So my first time going to a casino was on my 18th birthday. My brothers and my parents, we all went up to the casino. At the time, it was Ho-Chunk, Wisconsin Dells. You only had to be 18 to go there. And I just brought $10. And so back then, that's when you still had real quarters that were in place. And I just took one quarter at a time. So with that one quarter at a time, I turned that into $60. And so therein goes the gambling habit where I've all of a sudden like, wow, the first time I went to the casino, I turned $10 into $60, and I think it went all downhill from there. No, just joking. But, that kind of set the precedent. So from time to time, at the time I was working at a bank. I didn't go to school, college right after high school. I worked for a bank for a while, so I had some money, and I decided to go to Ho-Chunk more and more. So probably when I was younger, of course, you probably gamble a little bit more than you should. And that's kind of where, now that I'm older and have the financial resource to do it, I'm really trying to promote responsible gambling because, at the time when I was younger, I was spending too much money. But now, one of the things though, we go to Las Vegas, my wife and I, we go there 3-4 times a year. We're based in Wisconsin. And it's kind of been one of those things where it's been a great experience because we've saved up money, and we've used cash. We've never used a credit card or do anything like that to go to the casino or go to Las Vegas, and it's really created a fun type of environment. Now, going back to when I was younger, so I grew up in Madison, Wisconsin. We went up to Ho-Chunk, Wisconsin Dells at the time, and I think still even to this day, the casinos in Minnesota are only 18. And so from the time I was 18, we would go up to Red Wing, Minnesota, and go to Treasure Island, or we'd go to what we call Mystic Lake or Mistake Lake, which is just outside of Minneapolis. And me and my buddies, that's what we would do. We used to take rolls of nickels and play 3 nickels a spin, and that was kind of fun. So right around when I turned 21, that's when the Wisconsin casinos turned to being 21. And I went to UW-Platteville, University of Wisconsin-Platteville. And that's when I decided, when I was in college, that I was going to work at Dubuque Greyhound Park and Casino. So at Dubuque Greyhound Park and Casino, I was a slot attendant. I also worked at Diamond Joe Casino. That's actually the first place that I worked. So in there, I worked in the cage, which is the cashier cage. And so back then, everybody brought there was no tickets. You brought your coin in. You brought all of that in. So I would sit at the cage and cash out chips, put coins in the machines, do different like that, and then pay out, everybody there. So one of the things that when you get used to working in a casino is that you just have to get adjusted to the idea that somebody's watching you all the time, especially when you're handling money. So it was so weird at times because you'd be working in the cage and all of a sudden you get a call, from security saying, hey, step away from that area, don't stand too close, or you mispaid that person, or you had to do different things like that. It was also when I worked at Dubuque Greyhound Park, which is now Q Casino. I paid out the jackpots, the hand pays, the jackpots and things like that. And so at the time, I would wear essentially like a fanny pack full of cash. And back then, if you had anything more than 2,000 nickels, $100, it was a hand pay on a machine. Now, you didn't have to pay taxes with it, but it was a hand pay jackpot. So I would have to go around and pay those out. And I would just pay those out of my quote unquote fanny pack. But you knew that there was somebody assigned to basically watch you at all times because you had $20,000 on you. So from time to time, it got a little weird because you might stand a little bit close to the restroom and then you'd get something through your headpiece saying, step away from the bathroom, because they're a little bit close to it and they worry about you walking in and stealing the money. So just as much as the casino security is worried about customer stealing, they're also more worried about employee stealing. So it was kind of one of those things. And then as you work through the casino and you kind of clap your hands out to make sure you don't have any money. So when you were in Dubuque, it was quite common to see, myself included, when you'd give a cashier cash, you would kind of clear your hands. And that's just one of the things the casinos did to make sure that you didn't put any money up your sleeve. Because at the time, you always wore long sleeve shirts. Now, working in a casino, I really enjoyed it when I paid out the jackpots. There was a lot of really fun stories and a lot of kind of sad stories, So one of my fun stories is that whatever you may think about luck in a casino, I had a couple that was playing a $5 machine. They put in their money and then they got out $5 tokens and it ran out of money. So there wasn't $5 tokens. And so I went to the casino, or went to that machine and filled it up. And I said, hey, good luck to you. I haven't seen this machine win in a while, so I think you're due for it. Now, did I really think that they were due for a win? No. Did I think it's fun? Is that something you do? Sure. So I shut the machine, the rest of their tokens come out, and on their very first spin, they won $12,500. And they were going crazy. I think they thought that I set the machine to pay out, which you just can't do. But in the end, I got $250 tip from that person. And people might say that seems crazy, but they were happy. They thought somehow I helped get them a jackpot. And so that is what they did. And then, you would get tips from time to time when you would pay out these jackpots. And, the story that I say when it goes back to problem gambling is that I had a client one time who was a high roller who would come in with around $10,000 and play $5 machines. And so he would play 3 to 4 machines next to each other at $15 to $20 to $10, $15, $10 a spin. And he would just go next machines, max bet, 1, 2, 3, 4 machines. And so one time at the early start of my shift, this gentleman had all of the machines lit up for over $100,000 in jackpots. And, when I went up to pay for it, I said to him, hey man, take a check, take some of this in a check, and the casinos don't want me to do that. They want him to lose that money back all in one day. But I said to him, take a check, come back another day. Even if you need more money later, you can cash that check and they'll reissue a check for a lesser amount. And he was like, no. So I didn't want to push him on that. So I decided, all right, and there's nothing I can do about it. So we paid him $100,000 cash. Now, when the sad part about it is that he won $100,000. He had $100,000 cash plus some of his original bankroll. He kept playing. That $100,000 win wasn't enough for him. So by the end of my shift, he had lost all $100,000 back and was sitting at a nickel machine betting 25 cents a spin, trying to win $800. And it looked like he was just going out of control. So that's one of those things when I said to myself, my goodness, if you win $100,000 and then you get paid out and that's not good enough for you, that's when you have to take a step back and look, because that really can mess with your mind. So kind of going back to my gambling career, if you want to call it, or gambling story, I would say that, I went to Las Vegas for the first time when I was 21 years old, which I'm 43 now, so that was 22 years ago. And back then, it was I hate to say it, but Circus at that time was actually nice instead of kind of, I don't mean to hate on them. I used to have like a real enjoyment of Circus, but over time, my love affair with Circus has kind of dissipated as it's kind of gone downhill over the years. But at the time, they had the I guess not merry-go-round, but Ferris wheel, whatever you want to call it, that you could play slot machines while it was spinning around. And I just thought that was the coolest thing possible. So that first trip, I didn't really have much money to gamble, but we just walked up and down the strip with my brother, and it just kind of ingrained me that this is a pretty cool place to be. So fast forward to now, I've probably been to Las Vegas at least 20 times. I've gone by myself, I've gone with my dad, I've gone with my buddies, I've gone with my wife and family, and every time it's a little bit different. So the interesting thing about Las Vegas is now in today's world, there are slot machines and casinos and all of those types of things all over the country. So the appeal of going to Las Vegas just to gamble, there's much less appeal for it because you can gamble wherever you want. So now when I go out there, it's got to be a mixture of slot play, activities, things like that. So one of the highlights of everything that I did was there's the Stratosphere Tower, which at the top of the Stratosphere Tower, you can do what's called Sky Jump. Sky Jump is basically a controlled fall. It's 850 feet tall. And so basically we were there at 10 o'clock at night. You walk to the ledge and then you jump. Now for me, when I went there, I walked up there, you're out just on this ledge, and it's intimidating. It's dark. You see the Las Vegas Strip in the background, and you just kind of have to, they hook you up to this equipment, and literally you just have to trust. You have to jump off of that building. And so I jumped. I have a video of it that I've posted on TikTok and YouTube before, and you fall. It's a controlled fall. It's pretty intense at times, but now that I've done it, it's not as intense the second time through if I would do it. But in my wife's case, Rebecca, she walked out there and kind of looked down. So that's always that things that they say is don't look down when you're on a height, especially if you don't like heights. So she looked down and was having trouble getting to jump, and they were like, do you want us to turn you around and push you off? And she was like, yeah, sure, let's do that. So they pushed her off the stratosphere, and at the end of the day, it was quite an awesome experience for her because she was able to jump off and jump 855 feet and have a real experience to say that. So the interesting thing about that day is, so earlier in the day, I don't know if you know this, but behind Bally's there's a TV studio. And so we went there and we watched a recording of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. We watched 3 episodes getting recorded. So it was kind of one of those really cool things where we watched a TV episode being recorded, and then we had a nice dinner at the Stratosphere, and then we jumped off of the Stratosphere. But what was really funny about it is that when we jumped down, you get a pass to go back up to the top of the Stratosphere. Now, when we were riding the elevator back up, we were kind of talking about how we had jumped off, and people were saying, what do you mean? You've jumped off the building? I'm like, yeah, jumped off the building. It's pretty crazy. And like, oh, so you must ride the other rides at the top of the Stratosphere. And no, we don't ride the rides. I watch those rides at the top of the Stratosphere, and it just gives me anxiety. So apparently it's okay for me to jump off the building, but it is not okay for me to ride a ride that makes it look like you're gonna fall off of the building. So that's kind of the fun things. And in future episodes, I'm gonna talk about some of the other things. We've seen almost all of the shows. We'll do some show reviews. We'll do some other things like that. So I hope that we'll be able to kind of discuss that a little bit further. But kind of what some of the other things that I wanted to talk about on this particular episode as it relates to Las Vegas is that there's this really big debate. What is better, slots, table games? this mantra out there that table games players are so much smarter and they're playing the games better, and people who play slot machines are essentially idiots. But if you've seen some of my videos on TikTok, there's theoreticals, so if you look at table games, if you play it perfect strategy and everything goes your way over the lifetime of millions and millions and millions of hands, yes, those are statistically better games if you don't play the side bets. But, if you play Baccarat, for example, which is one of the best games to play at a casino, the banker and the player bet, that has a 1% edge. Not bad. Gives you a chance to play for a while. But if you play the tie bet or any of the other side bets, that puts the edge up to 15%, meaning the casino wins 15% of your money and the players win back 85% over the long run. Well, you compare that to slot machines, the average slot machine in Las Vegas is at 89, 90%. So in theoretics, playing a slot machine has a better return to players than somebody playing Baccarat who's playing the side bet. And that really even applies the same to Blackjack. So Blackjack itself has an incredibly low house edge if you play perfect strategy under ideal conditions, and over the long run you're going to do that. But remember, this is the long run perfect strategy. There are people that think that they're playing perfect strategy and they're not. But even if you are playing perfect strategy, that doesn't mean you can't lose for a year. This is talking over the long run. But one of the things that I learned when I talked about Blackjack was, I learned the theory that you always assume that a dealer has a 10 below. So you always assume if a dealer has a king up, you assume they have a 20. The dealer has a 6 behind it, you assume they have 16. Well, in doing some research, that strategy actually creates a 10% house edge. So essentially, if you play and assume that there's always a 10 behind, that's not perfect strategy. And that puts Blackjack on the same level as a slot machine. So, again, over the long run, you're probably going to do better playing table games, but really it just depends on your strategy. Because if you don't enjoy it, if you enjoy table games and they have a low house edge and you get educated on what you're doing, obviously that's going to be better. But for myself, I actually get bored playing at blackjack tables, and then the games that I do enjoy, of blackjack is like free bet blackjack, where you get a free double down or a free split. Well, when you look at that game has an incredibly high house edge. So if you're going to look at that compared to a slot machine, free bet blackjack is on par with what a slot machine pays back. But, there's a lot of debate in the community about how that all shakes out. But the reality of it is, at the end of the day, for anything related to gambling, it's about what you enjoy. If you like playing slots, play slots. If you like playing table games, play table games. In my case, I like playing bingo as well. So my wife and I will go play bingo. We've played bingo all over the country. In Vegas, we typically play at the Plaza. We also play at Palace Station. One thing to keep in mind when you're playing in Las Vegas, though, if you're playing at Potawatomi Casino in Milwaukee versus playing at the Plaza or Palace Station in Las Vegas, by far, you're going to get much bigger paybacks for your buy-in at a Midwest casino, at Potawatomi or Ho Chunk or any of these Midwest ones. The paybacks in Las Vegas are quite poor, but you can buy in for pretty low rates and feel pretty comfortable with that. So when I go out there, I like to play bingo because it's like an hour of my time where I get a buy-in for 30, 40 bucks and get to play bingo, and I've won some. So it's all kind of that risk-reward timing kinds of things. But at any rate, as we wrap up this first episode, I'm going to try to keep these around 20 minutes because I think that that's the right approach for that. I just really want to appreciate all of your support on the TikTok and YouTube, and now hopefully on this podcast. I hope that you enjoy this content. There'll be a lot more stories. In the future episodes, we'll be talking about Las Vegas news, or actually casino news in general. We'll be looking at some statistics of how casinos perform and slot machine and table game paybacks and all things of that sort. But for now, we're going to end this episode. If you have any questions, comments, feedback, feel free to send me an email to casinofanatic78@gmail.com. And I'm happy to interact. If you haven't subscribed on TikTok or YouTube's still a developing thing for me. I started on TikTok. I'm like one of those people that started on TikTok first and trying to build out YouTube. So my content on YouTube is still growing a little bit. But like, subscribe. For my channel, all I want people to realize is that this is fun for me. It's not a job. I have a full-time job doing other things like that. So I'm going to give you my honest take on things, and you might not like it, or you might disagree with me, and that's perfectly okay. I expect that. So I just enjoy having an open dialogue about these kind of things. So again, thank you so much for listening to this episode. Please like, subscribe, leave a review, and if you have questions. Otherwise, my plan is to release a new episode every other week. But thank you so much, and have a good day.